I'm Sylvia Reynolds, 68 years old, and until 6 months ago, I thought my daughter Tiffany and I shared an unbreakable bond. After her father died, I built our wealth from nothing, planning to pass down our family's most precious heirloom, a $500,000 diamond ring that survived the Great Depression. I'd chosen her engagement party as the perfect moment. Instead, I found myself relegated to serving drinks while her future mother-in-law Geraldine lounged in the seat of honor. That night changed everything between us. If you've ever felt betrayed by someone you sacrificed everything for, give this video a like and subscribe to join our community of survivors who learn to stand up for themselves. Let me know where you're watching from as I share how I found my worth again. Before I tell you about the engagement party disaster, you need to understand what led to that moment. I wasn't always wealthy. When my husband Richard died unexpectedly of a heart attack 27 years ago, I was left alone with our 4-year-old daughter Tiffany and mountains of debt. Richard had been terrible with money, something I discovered only after his passing. The life insurance barely covered the funeral expenses. With determination born of necessity, I started a small catering business from our tiny kitchen. I'd always loved cooking, and it was the only marketable skill I had. Those early years were brutal. I'd wake at 4 a.m. to prep food, drop Tiffany at daycare, cater events all day, pick her up, put her to bed, then do paperwork until midnight. Weekends were spent at farmers' markets selling homemade preserves for extra cash. "You're going to work yourself to death," my sister Harriet would warn during her occasional visits. "Tiffany needs you alive more than she needs new shoes." But I couldn't slow down. Every time Tiffany needed something I couldn't afford, it felt like personal failure. When she was 7, she came home crying because all the other girls had fancy birthday parties with ponies and princesses, while her last celebration had been homemade cupcakes in the park. "Next year will be different," I promised her, taking on extra jobs to make it happen. And it was. By her 8th birthday, my business had secured contracts with 3 corporate clients. I threw her a princess-themed party that made all her friends jealous. The smile on her face was worth every sleepless night. As my catering business grew, I expanded into event planning, then property investments. By Tiffany's teen years, we'd moved from our cramped apartment to a beautiful colonial in Westbrook's most prestigious neighborhood. I made sure she had everything I never did. Private school education, piano lessons, horse riding classes, summer programs abroad. Perhaps I overcompensated. My friend Margaret pointed this out during one of our weekly coffee dates. "You're raising her to expect the world handed to her on a silver platter, Sylvia," she said as we sat in my garden. "When was the last time she had to work for anything?" "I just want her to have opportunities," I defended. "Not struggle like I did." Margaret gave me that look she'd perfected over our 40 years of friendship. "There's a difference between struggle and character building." I dismissed her concerns. Tiffany and I were closer than most mothers and daughters. We had weekly spa days, shopping trips to New York, and she always called me her best friend. When she graduated from Cornell with honors, I felt vindicated. All my sacrifices had created this poised, beautiful, accomplished young woman. Then she met Victor Reeves at a charity gala I'd organized for the Children's Hospital. He was handsome, from a good family as they say, and worked at his father's investment firm. Initially, he seemed polite if somewhat reserved. He would stand when I entered a room, send thank you notes after dinners, all the right social graces. It was only when I met his mother Geraldine that the first warning signs appeared. She arrived at our first lunch wearing pearls and a Chanel suit that screamed old money, though I later learned from mutual acquaintances that the Reeves family wealth was relatively new and mostly for show. "What a charming little house," she said, examining my foyer with a tight smile. My little house was a 5,000 square foot historic home I'd spent years restoring. Over lunch, she peppered me with questions about my catering hobby, and seemed surprised when I explained the scale of my business. "How innovative to have built something from nothing," she said with affected admiration. "I suppose single mothers must be resourceful." Though I do wonder if Tiffany missed having a father figure. Victor had such advantages with proper paternal guidance. I felt Margaret's foot press against mine under the table, a signal we'd developed over decades when one of us needed to keep her mouth shut. After they left, Margaret didn't hold back. "That woman is going to be trouble, Sylvia. Mark my words." I brushed it off. "She's just protective of her son." "I understand that." "No, she's territorial and she already sees Tiffany as a possession. And I don't like how Tiffany kept looking at her for approval during lunch." Again, I dismissed her concerns. I was too excited about the future, especially about passing down my grandmother Beatrice's ring. The 3.5-carat diamond in an antique platinum setting had been in our family for generations. My grandmother had managed to keep it during the Great Depression when they lost everything else, hiding it in a jar of flour. She'd given it to my mother, who passed it to me when I married Richard. "This ring comes with a responsibility," my mother had told me. "It's not just about the value, though that's considerable. It's about the women in our family and our resilience. Someday you'll give it to your daughter when she's ready." I'd kept it in a safe deposit box for years, waiting for the right moment. With Tiffany's engagement, that moment had finally arrived. I couldn't wait to see her face when I presented it to her, continuing our family legacy. If only I'd paid attention to the changes already happening right in front of me. The shift in Tiffany was subtle at first, like a familiar melody played slightly off-key. Our weekly mother-daughter lunches became monthly, then sporadic. When we did meet, she'd arrive late, check her phone constantly, and leave early for appointments with Geraldine. "Sorry, Mom, Geraldine found this amazing florist in Connecticut. We're driving up to see her work," she'd say, barely touching the meal I'd prepared. "But we already discussed using bloom and petal for your wedding," I reminded her. "They did Chelsea Clinton's flowers. I've already spoken with them about dates." Tiffany sighed with the exaggerated patience one might use with a child. "That's so outdated, Mom. Geraldine says minimalist Scandinavian arrangements are what sophisticated people choose now. It wasn't just the wedding. Suddenly my home decor was cluttered, my clothes trying too hard, and my opinions old-fashioned. Each criticism came with a preamble. Geraldine thinks or Geraldine says. Geraldine thinks the emerald earrings you gave me for Christmas are a bit garish. Could we exchange them for pearls? Geraldine says a woman my age should focus on classic pieces rather than trends. One evening, she even criticized my parenting. Geraldine thinks you might have been too indulgent with me growing up. She says structure and discipline create stronger adults. I bit my tongue so hard I tasted blood. The woman who'd sent her son to boarding school at 8 and spent his school holidays at spa retreats in Switzerland was lecturing about my parenting? Despite these increasing tensions, I remained excited about the wedding. I offered to host planning sessions at my home. Actually, we'll use Geraldine's country club, Tiffany informed me. It's more convenient for everyone. Everyone except me, I muttered, but agreed anyway. At these planning meetings, I was consistently outvoted and overruled. I suggested the botanical gardens for the ceremony, a venue I'd secured through personal connections. Too unpredictable, Geraldine declared. What if it rains? The Reeves always marry at St. Andrew's Cathedral. When I mentioned the chef I'd worked with for 20 years who could create a magnificent reception dinner, Geraldine raised a perfectly plucked eyebrow. Catering is so impersonal. My personal chef Guillermo will handle everything. He trained under Gordon Ramsay. Never mind that I was paying for the entire wedding. My checkbook was welcome, my input was not. After one particularly frustrating session where my suggestion of a jazz quartet was dismissed as common, I tried to speak with Tiffany privately. Honey, I feel like I'm not being heard here. This is your wedding too, not just Victor's. Tiffany glanced nervously toward where Geraldine was speaking with the wedding planner. Mom, please don't make a scene. Geraldine knows what's best for these things. Her family has connections we don't. Connections? I sputtered. Tiffany, I've organized events for senators and CEOs. I know every premium vendor in the state. She patted my hand like I was a confused elderly relative. That's different, Mom. This is about tradition and status. Please don't embarrass me. Those words cut deep. Embarrass her? When had I become an embarrassment rather than her champion? The final straw came 2 weeks before the engagement party. I'd called to confirm details as I was hosting it at the Westbrook Club, the most exclusive venue in town. About the party, Tiffany began hesitantly. Geraldine has some concerns. What concerns could she possibly have? I've handled everything. Well, she thinks it might be better if you blend in more. Let Victor's family take the lead since technically, they should be hosting as the groom's family. Except they're not hosting or paying a dime. I reminded her. It's not about money, Mom, she said with exasperation. It's about appearances. Geraldine comes from a world where things are done certain ways. And I don't. I asked incredulously. You know what I mean? Just try not to do too much, okay? Wear something subdued. Geraldine suggested navy blue would be appropriate for your position. My position? As mother of the bride and host of the event? I was speechless. That evening I called Margaret in tears. She's ashamed of me, Marge. After everything I've done. She's under that woman's spell, Margaret said firmly. But Sylvia, this won't stop unless you stand up for yourself. You've worked too hard to be sidelined now. My brother Alan offered a different perspective when I called him later. You've given that girl everything without expectations. Maybe it's time she understood there are consequences to treating people poorly, especially her mother. I spent the next 2 weeks oscillating between hurt and determination. I bought an elegant, understated dress in champagne rather than the prescribed navy. I had my hair and makeup professionally done. I even prepared a special gift basket for Geraldine, an olive branch of sorts. And I brought my grandmother's ring, nestled in its vintage velvet box. Despite everything, I still wanted this moment with my daughter. I wanted to see her eyes light up when she realized what I was giving her. Not just a ring but our family's history and resilience. How naive I was to think sentiment would triumph over status. The evening of the engagement party arrived crisp and clear, with just enough autumn chill to justify the roaring fireplaces in the Westbrook Club's grand ballroom. I'd spared no expense. Crystal chandeliers sparkled above tables adorned with white orchids and gold-rimmed china. A string quartet played softly in the corner. The champagne was vintage Dom Perignon, the canapés prepared by a Michelin-starred chef. I arrived early to oversee final arrangements, the ring box secure in my evening clutch. My heart fluttered with anticipation despite recent tensions. Surely tonight, surrounded by the evidence of my love and generosity, Tiffany would remember who had always been in her corner. Guests began arriving at 7. I greeted each one personally, accepting congratulations and compliments on the stunning venue. At 7:30, Tiffany and Victor arrived. She looked breathtaking in a cream silk gown that complemented her auburn hair. For a brief moment when our eyes met, I saw a flash of the little girl who once ran to me with skinned knees and triumphs. "Mom," she said, air kissing near my cheek to avoid disturbing her makeup. "Everything looks nice." Nice. The word felt like a paper cut. Before I could respond, Victor nodded tersely in my direction and steered Tiffany toward a group of his colleagues. I was still recovering from this lukewarm greeting when a commotion at the entrance signaled Geraldine's arrival. She swept in wearing a floor-length crimson gown with a diamond collar that screamed for attention. Behind her trailed her husband Bernard, a quiet man who seemed perpetually exhausted by his wife's theatrics. "Darlings," Geraldine called, arms outstretched as if blessing the masses. What a charming little gathering. The little gathering had cost me just under $50,000. What happened next still makes my stomach clench. Tiffany rushed to Geraldine, embracing her with genuine warmth she hadn't shown me. "You look absolutely stunning," my daughter gushed. "Everyone, please welcome Victor's mother, Mrs. Geraldine Reeves." The guests applauded as if royalty had arrived. Geraldine soaked it up, waving graciously before allowing Tiffany to escort her to the head table. Not just any seat at the head table, but the central position traditionally reserved for the mother of the bride or hostess of the event, which was me. On both counts, I stood frozen near the entrance, clutch gripped so tightly my knuckles whitened. Margaret appeared at my elbow, having witnessed everything. "Breathe, Sylvia," she whispered. "Don't give her the satisfaction of seeing you upset." I forced a smile and made my way toward the head table, only to be intercepted by Tiffany. "Mom," she said with a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes, "we're about to run out of champagne at table 3. Could you please help out and make sure the servers are refilling glasses?" Geraldine noticed some people waiting.
I blinka, sartajni de mišart.
You want me to supervise the servers? Honey, I'm the host and mother of the bride. My place is at the head table with you. Tiffany's smile faltered. Mom, please don't make this difficult. We need someone to coordinate with the staff, and you have experience with this sort of thing. This sort of thing being the business I'd built from nothing to give her every advantage in life. Besides, she continued, lowering her voice, Geraldine is more comfortable at the center. Her digestive issues require a specific seating arrangement. The absurdity of the excuse might have been comical if it weren't so hurtful. I looked past Tiffany to where Geraldine sat regally in my rightful place, holding court like a queen with my daughter's friends and future in-laws. Something inside me cracked. Not loudly or dramatically, but quietly, like ice on a winter pond. Fine, I said simply. For the next 2 hours I circulated through the party like hired help. I checked on champagne levels, directed servers, and ensured the temperature remained perfect. Several guests who didn't know me asked where they could find the restrooms or when dinner would be served. One man tried to hand me his empty glass. The ultimate humiliation came when an older gentleman slipped a $20 bill into my hand after I helped his wife find her misplaced purse. For your trouble, he said kindly. The service here is excellent. I couldn't even muster the energy to correct him. I just pocketed the bill and moved on, numb. From my peripheral position, I overheard snippets of conversation from Geraldine's court. Such a simple venue, she was saying to another woman. But I suppose it's the best one can expect when new money tries to impress. Later, as I passed behind their table with a fresh bottle of champagne, the mother seems desperate for attention. All these extravagant flowers screaming, look at me.
No satelti.
Each word was a paper cut on my already bleeding heart. The final blow came during toasts. Victor's father spoke first, a generic welcome to the families. Then Geraldine rose, commanding instant silence. When Victor first brought Tiffany home, I knew she was special. She began, voice thick with practiced emotion. I saw in her the daughter I never had but always wanted. These past months planning this beautiful celebration, and the wedding to come have been such a joy. Tiffany, darling, you filled a void in my heart I didn't know existed. Tiffany wiped away tears as Geraldine continued. I want to thank you for allowing me to guide you through this important time. Some girls aren't fortunate enough to have proper direction during these milestones. I promise to always be the mother figure you need. The room erupted in applause. I stood in the corner, champagne bottles still in hand, invisible. When Tiffany stood to respond, I held my breath. Surely now she would acknowledge me, the woman who had actually raised her. Thank you, Geraldine, she said, voice thick with emotion. You've shown me what true sophistication and class look like. I'm so grateful for your guidance, and for welcoming me into your family. You truly are the mother I've always needed in my life. The mother she always needed. The words echoed in my head like funeral bells. No one noticed when I set down the champagne bottle and walked out. No one saw me retrieve my coat or slip into the night air. No one except Margaret, who found me sitting in my car, staring blankly at the ring box now open in my palm. Take me home, Marge, I whispered. I can't be here anymore. She didn't argue, just took my keys and drove me away from the glittering party, where my daughter had publicly erased me from her life. Margaret insisted on staying with me that night, but I needed solitude to process the seismic shift in my world. After assuring her I wouldn't do anything rash, I stood in my empty foyer listening to the silence. Just 6 months ago, this house had bustled with Tiffany's energy as we discussed her future with Victor. I moved through the rooms like a ghost, touching photographs that suddenly felt like artifacts from a civilization long extinct. In my study, I sank into the leather chair Richard had given me for our 10th anniversary, and finally allowed the tears to come. They weren't delicate, cinematic tears but ugly, guttural sobs that left me gasping. How had I failed so completely? What maternal deficit had left Tiffany so vulnerable to Geraldine's manipulations? Or was it simpler than that? Had I raised a daughter so shallow that she would discard her mother for someone with more social cachet? Around midnight, I found myself in Tiffany's childhood bedroom, preserved like a museum exhibit. I sat on her canopy bed, running my fingers over the quilt I'd saved for months to buy when she was 12. On her bookshelf stood photographs documenting our life together. Tiffany's first day of school, her high school graduation, our trip to Paris for her 21st birthday. I picked up a silver frame, holding a picture of us laughing on a beach in Maui, faces identical in joy. Where did you go? I whispered to her frozen image. Sleep eluded me that night. I paced, replaying not just the party, but the subtle changes leading up to it. How had I missed the signs? In the pre-dawn hours, I pulled out photo albums and financial records, a bizarre attempt to quantify our relationship. Here were receipts for her braces, $6,500, her prom dress, $1,200, her first car, $32,000. Tuition statements from Cornell, $256,000 over 4 years. The down payment for her condo, $85,000. It wasn't about the money. I'd given it freely, joyfully. But seeing the evidence of my dedication alongside the memory of being treated like a servant crystallized something inside me. At 6 a.m. my phone rang. It was Margaret. I've been up all night worrying, she said without preamble. How are you? Surprisingly calm, I replied, and it was true. The storm of tears had passed, leaving clarity in its wake. I saw how they treated you, Sylvia. It was unconscionable. Did Tiffany notice I left? Margaret's hesitation told me everything. Around midnight, when they were cutting the cake, Victor's sister mentioned you weren't there for photos. Tiffany just said you probably had an early morning meeting. The casual dismissal should have hurt, but I felt oddly detached. What are you going to do? Margaret asked. I don't know yet. But I know what I'm not going to do. My brother Alan called around noon. Unlike Margaret's gentle approach, Alan had always been blunt. Marge told me what happened. That ungrateful little princess needs a reality check. Alan, please. She's still my daughter. A daughter who let you be humiliated in front of 200 people. Sylvia, you've spent your life giving that girl everything she wanted. Maybe it's time she understood that actions have consequences. His words echoed my own middle-of-the-night realizations. The ring, I said suddenly. I was going to give her Grandma Beatrice's ring last night. The diamond that could buy a small house? Thank God you didn't. I've been saving it for her since she was born. It's her heritage. Heritage requires respect for where you came from, Alan countered. From what I saw last night, she's forgotten that completely. After hanging up, I retrieved the ring box from my purse. The diamond caught the afternoon light, splitting it into rainbows across my wall. My grandmother had treasured this ring through poverty and hardship. Understanding its true value lay not in the diamond but in what it represented. Our family's resilience and bond. I closed the box with a definitive snap. Tiffany wasn't ready for this legacy. Perhaps she never would be. That evening, I ran a bath with the expensive lavender salts Tiffany had given me last Christmas. As I soaked, I considered my options. I could confront Tiffany and Geraldine, demand an apology, and risk further alienating my daughter. I could pretend nothing had happened, continue financing the wedding, and resign myself to a background role in Tiffany's life. Or I could stand up for myself while leaving the door open for reconciliation. By morning my path was clear. When Tiffany finally called, I wasn't surprised that she made no mention of my early departure from the party. Mom, we need to finalize the wedding venue deposit this week. Can you transfer the funds today? It's $35,000.
No hello.
No thank you for the party, just a financial demand. Actually, Tiffany, I'd like to discuss the wedding budget in person. Are you free for lunch tomorrow? I'm really busy with dress fittings, but I could do a quick coffee at Westbrook Cafe around 1. Perfect. I'll see you then. I hung up feeling strangely powerful. For the first time in our relationship, I wasn't rushing to accommodate her schedule or needs. It was a small step, but a significant one. That night, I placed Grandma Beatrice's ring in my safe deposit box at the bank. It would stay there until I determined whether Tiffany could appreciate its true value. Not the $500,000 it was insured for, but the generations of love and sacrifice it represented. The ring, like my self-respect, was not a gift to be taken for granted. Westbrook Cafe occupied the ground floor of a converted Victorian mansion downtown. With its mahogany paneling and discreet alcoves, it was perfect for private conversations. I arrived 20 minutes early, securing a quiet corner table and ordering a pot of Earl Grey to steady my nerves. At precisely 1 o'clock, the cafe door swung open. Tiffany entered, sunglasses perched on her head, looking like she'd stepped from a magazine spread. My heart lurched with maternal pride despite everything. She was beautiful, my daughter. The feeling evaporated when I saw who followed. Geraldine Reeves, resplendent in a cream pantsuit that probably cost more than most people's monthly mortgage. I hadn't anticipated this ambush. My carefully rehearsed speech suddenly felt inadequate. "Mom," Tiffany said, sliding into the chair opposite me. "I hope you don't mind that Geraldine joined us. She's been so helpful with the wedding planning." Geraldine gave me a smile that never reached her eyes. "Sylvia, lovely to see you again. The engagement party was quaint." Quaint. The $50,000 party I'd hosted was quaint. "I wasn't expecting you, Geraldine," I said evenly. This was meant to be a conversation between Tiffany and me. "Oh, but we're practically family now," she replied with a dismissive wave. "And since we're discussing wedding finances, I thought I should be here to offer my expertise." "Your expertise?" I couldn't keep the edge from my voice. "I wasn't aware you were contributing to the budget." Geraldine's smile tightened. "Some contributions can't be measured in dollars, Sylvia. Guidance, taste, connections, these things are invaluable." Tiffany jumped in before I could respond. "About that deposit, Mom. The venue needs it by Friday or we lose our date." I took a deliberate sip of tea, using the moment to collect myself. "Before we discuss finances, I'd like to talk about the engagement party." Tiffany shifted uncomfortably. "What about it?" "Everything looked great. I'm not talking about the decor, Tiffany. I'm talking about how I was treated." "What do you mean?" Her genuine confusion was perhaps the most hurtful part. She truly didn't see the problem. "You had me serving drinks while Geraldine sat in the host position. You introduced her as if she were the mother of the bride. You publicly thanked her for being the mother you always needed." Tiffany blinked rapidly. "Mom, you're overreacting. I just asked you to help with the champagne because you know about those things. Because I'm a caterer? Or because Geraldine wanted my seat?" "Now, Sylvia," Geraldine interjected. "I think you're being oversensitive. These events are stressful for everyone. Perhaps at your age, the excitement was overwhelming. My age has nothing to do with recognizing when I'm being sidelined at an event I planned and paid for." "It's not always about money," Geraldine said with practiced patience. "Funny how people with their hands out are always the ones saying that," I replied. Tiffany gasped. "Mom, don't be rude." "Rude?" I laughed incredulously. "Tiffany, I left the party in tears and you didn't even notice I was gone. That's beyond rude. It's heartbreaking." For the first time, uncertainty flickered across her face. "You left early? I thought you were just somewhere else in the room." "I left at 9. The party continued for 4 more hours without the host or mother of the bride." Silence fell over our table. A waiter approached, sensed the tension, and wisely retreated. "Well," Geraldine finally said, "what's done is done. Let's focus on the wedding. I've been meaning to discuss the rehearsal dinner. The restaurant you suggested is rather commercial. I've spoken with Lou Bernardin about a private room." The audacity left me momentarily speechless. She was changing plans for an event I was financing without even pretending to consult me. "Actually," I said, finding my voice, "given recent events, I'm reconsidering my financial commitment to the wedding." Tiffany's head snapped up. "What? Mom, you can't be serious." "I'm perfectly serious. I've spent my life making sure you had everything you needed, Tiffany. But I won't bankroll my own erasure." "This is ridiculous," Geraldine scoffed. "You're her mother. Of course you'll pay for her wedding. There's no of course about it. Especially when you're the one making all the decisions while dismissing my input." Tiffany's expression shifted from shock to calculation. I recognized the look from childhood negotiations over curfews and allowances. "Mom," she said, softening her voice, "I understand you felt left out. I'm sorry if I didn't pay enough attention to you at the party. Things were just so hectic. Not, I'm sorry I hurt you, but I'm sorry if you felt hurt." The classic non-apology. This isn't about attention, Tiffany. It's about respect. Something that's been notably absent lately. "Fine," she conceded. I respect you. Of course I do. You're my mother. Now can we please discuss the venue deposit? We're going to lose our date. I took a deep breath. There's something else. I brought Grandma Beatrice's ring to the engagement party. I was planning to give it to you. Tiffany's eyes widened. The diamond? Mom, that's worth a fortune. Of course that was her first thought. Not the family legacy or sentimental value. The price tag. Yes, it's valuable. But its true worth is in what it represents. Generations of women in our family supporting each other through hardship. I realized last night that you're not ready for that responsibility. Not ready. Her voice rose sharply. I'm getting married. Of course I'm ready for jewelry. It's not just jewelry, Tiffany. It's our heritage. And right now, you're turning your back on that heritage in favor of Geraldine's world. This is emotional manipulation, Geraldine declared. Using family heirlooms as leverage is beneath you, Sylvia. Beneath me? Like serving drinks at my own party while you played queen. Tiffany's face flushed with anger. So what are you saying? You're holding the ring hostage until I... What? Choose you over Geraldine? That's insane. No, I'm saying the ring stays with me until you demonstrate that you understand its true value. And I don't mean its appraisal price. I can't believe this, Tiffany muttered. First the wedding funds, now the ring. What else are you going to take away because your feelings are hurt? I haven't made any final decisions about the wedding, I clarified. But I won't be treated like an ATM with no opinions or feelings. Geraldine stood abruptly. This is getting us nowhere. Tiffany, we should leave. Clearly your mother needs time to reconsider her rash statements. Tiffany hesitated, looking between us. For a moment, I glimpsed uncertainty in her eyes, a flicker of the daughter I knew. Then it vanished, replaced by hardened resolve. Fine, she said, rising. Call me when you're ready to be reasonable. They left without another word, Geraldine's arm protectively around Tiffany's shoulders. I remained at the table, finishing my now cold tea with steady hands. The confrontation had gone both better and worse than I'd anticipated. I hadn't lost my composure, but neither had I reached Tiffany. As I paid the check, I noticed my reflection in a decorative mirror. The woman looking back seemed different somehow. Sadder, yes, but also more dignified. Standing up for myself hadn't been easy, but it had been necessary. I left the cafe and walked to my car, feeling lighter despite the unresolved conflict. For the first time in months, perhaps years, I'd prioritized my own worth over Tiffany's demands. It was a small victory, but significant. The ring remained safely in my deposit box. And my self-respect remained intact. The week following our confrontation passed in silence. No calls or texts from Tiffany. Instead, my phone filled with voicemails from Victor, each more demanding than the last. Sylvia, this is ridiculous. Tiffany deserves her grandmother's ring. It's her birthright. Do you have any idea what you're doing to my fiancé? She's been crying for days. My mother was right about you. This is nothing but a power play. I deleted each message without responding. It was telling that Victor focused exclusively on the ring, not the wedding finances or how I'd been treated. The $500,000 diamond had clearly become the priority. Geraldine's text messages were more direct. You're making a grave mistake. Victor's family has connections that could make life very uncomfortable for you. The implied threat only strengthened my resolve. I blocked her number. The silence from Tiffany hurt the most. Despite everything, I'd hoped our confrontation might lead to reflection and eventual reconciliation. Her absence suggested otherwise. After 10 days of emptiness in a house suddenly too large, I made an appointment with Dr. Harriet Weinstein, a therapist Margaret had recommended. I feel like I've lost my daughter, I told her during our first session, surrounded by potted plants and gentle lighting. But the truth is, maybe I lost her long before the engagement party. Dr. Harriet, a stylish woman in her 60s with silver hair and kind eyes, nodded. Sometimes a crisis simply reveals what's been developing beneath the surface. Tell me about your relationship with Tiffany before Victor. For an hour, I poured out the story of our lives together. My fears that I'd spoiled her. My confusion about where I'd gone wrong. Sylvia, Dr. Harriet said gently when I finished, you're assuming total responsibility for how Tiffany turned out. That's not how it works. You gave her opportunities and love. She's made her own choices about what to value. But if I raised her differently, we all make mistakes as parents, but adult children make their own decisions. The question now is, what do you want your life to look like going forward, with or without Tiffany's active presence? It was a question I'd never considered. My entire adult life had revolved around Tiffany's needs and happiness. Who was I without that central purpose? Over the following weeks, I began rediscovering myself. I reconnected with friends I'd neglected while focusing on Tiffany's wedding. I resumed my Thursday bridge game with Margaret and 2 other widows. I joined a book club at the library. Most significantly, I started volunteering at New Haven Women's Shelter, using my business experience to help women create resumes and prepare for job interviews. It was there I met Jessica Ramirez, a 26-year-old single mother of 2 fleeing an abusive relationship. Something about her determination reminded me of myself at that age. I never finished college, she told me during our first meeting. But I want to provide a better life for my kids. I just don't know where to start. One step at a time, I assured her. First a job, then stable housing, then we can look at education options. Within 3 weeks, I'd helped Jessica secure a receptionist position at a local law firm that offered tuition assistance. When she called to tell me she'd been accepted, her joy was contagious. "You've changed my life, Sylvia," she said, voice breaking. "No one's ever believed in me like this." Her gratitude was both heartwarming and painful, highlighting the contrast with my own daughter's attitude. 6 weeks after the confrontation at Westbrook Cafe, Charlotte Kim, one of Tiffany's bridesmaids and oldest friends, asked to meet for coffee. We'd always had a good relationship. I practically helped raise Charlotte after her mother's early death from cancer. "I'm worried about Tiffany," she confided once we were settled with our drinks. "She's not herself lately." "How so?" Charlotte hesitated. "I probably shouldn't tell you this, but the wedding's been postponed. Victor's having second thoughts." A cold knot formed in my stomach. Despite everything, I hated the thought of Tiffany being hurt. What happened? Honestly, once it became clear you weren't going to finance everything, Victor's enthusiasm cooled considerably. "And Geraldine?" Charlotte trailed off. "Geraldine what?" "She's been telling people you're mentally unstable, that you're vindicatively withholding family assets from Tiffany out of jealousy." The accusation was so absurd I almost laughed. "And people believe that." "Some do. Others remember how you've always been there for Tiffany. For all of us, really." Charlotte reached across the table to squeeze my hand. "I haven't forgotten who helped me apply to colleges after Mom died, or who came to every dance recital when Dad was working nights." Tears pricked my eyes at the unexpected support. "Thank you, Charlotte. That means a lot." "Tiffany's confused right now. Victor and Geraldine have been. Well, they've been very focused on your financial support. And the ring. They're after my money," I said flatly. "I suspected as much." "Not just them. Tiffany too," Charlotte admitted reluctantly. "She's been talking about the lifestyle she expected to have. The house's vacation status. Without your backing, it's all in jeopardy." The confirmation of my daughter's materialistic priorities should have devastated me. Instead, it clarified my path forward. I couldn't force Tiffany to change her values, but I could ensure mine remained intact. "Thank you for telling me this, Charlotte. I appreciate your honesty." Later that evening, as I helped Jessica and her children move into their new apartment, I felt a peace I hadn't experienced in months. The modest 2-bedroom wasn't much by Westbrook standards, but Jessica's face shone with pride as she showed me around. "My kids will have their own room," she said, voice thick with emotion. "I never thought I'd be able to provide that." Her 5-year-old son Mateo tugged at my hand. "Miss Sylvia, will you come visit us?" "Of course I will," I promised, kneeling to his level. "And maybe you can help me bake cookies sometime. I have a special chocolate chip recipe." As I drove home that night, I reflected on the strange turns my life had taken. I'd lost my daughter to materialism and status seeking, but I'd gained perspective and new purpose. The pain remained, a dull ache beneath my breastbone, but alongside it grew something new. Self-respect and genuine connection with people who valued more than what I could give them materially. The ring remained in my safe deposit box, a reminder of heritage, values, and the strength of women who knew their worth couldn't be measured in carats. 3 months after the engagement party disaster, autumn had surrendered to winter's first tentative advances. Thanksgiving had passed quietly. My invitation to Tiffany had gone unanswered. I'd spent the holiday instead with Jessica's family and several other women from the shelter, hosting a feast in my dining room that hadn't seen so much laughter in years. December brought unexpected news. With Margaret's legal help, I'd established the Reynolds Women's Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to supporting single mothers pursuing education and entrepreneurship. Using a portion of what would have been Tiffany's wedding fund, we'd already provided scholarships to 3 women, including Jessica, who had enrolled in night classes to complete her accounting degree. "You've turned pain into purpose," Dr. Harriet observed during our weekly session. "That's remarkable growth, Sylvia." "I still miss my daughter," I admitted, "especially with the holidays approaching." "Of course you do. Love doesn't disappear because relationships change. Have you considered reaching out again?" I had many times. I'd composed emails, drafted texts, even written old-fashioned letters, all unsent. Pride and hurt held me back, along with the fear of rejection. "The ball is in her court," I said firmly. "I won't beg for a relationship." Life had developed new rhythms. Mondays and Wednesdays at the shelter. Tuesdays with my foundation board. Thursdays with the bridge club. Weekends often included helping Jessica with childcare while she studied, or having dinner with new friends. I was sitting in my kitchen on a Sunday afternoon, reviewing scholarship applications, when the doorbell rang. Probably Margaret, I thought, arriving early for our planned movie night. Instead, Tiffany stood on my doorstep, alone and unadorned. No designer outfit, minimal makeup, hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She looked younger, vulnerable in a way I hadn't seen since her college days. "Mom," she said softly, "can I come in?" My heart hammered against my ribs as I stepped aside. We moved to the living room in awkward silence, taking seats across from each other like diplomatic envoys from hostile nations. "Would you like some tea?" I offered, falling back on social niceties to fill the void. "No, thank you." She twisted her hands in her lap, something she'd done since childhood when nervous. "I owe you an apology. Many apologies, actually." I remained silent, allowing her the space to continue. "The wedding's off," she stated flatly. "Victor ended things when it became clear there wouldn't be financial support from you. Turns out his firm isn't doing as well as he claimed, and they were counting on your money to maintain appearances." "I'm sorry you were hurt," I said, and meant it despite everything. She gave a bitter laugh. "The sad thing is, I'm not even that hurt about losing Victor. I'm more embarrassed about how easily I was manipulated. By him, by Geraldine, by the whole illusion of status they represented." "What happened with Geraldine?" "Once Victor ended the engagement, she dropped all pretense of caring about me. Actually told me I wasn't Reeves' material after all." Tiffany's voice caught. She said I was common like my mother. The insult to me apparently hurt her more than the rejection of herself. It was a small but significant indication that some filial loyalty remained. "I'm sorry," I repeated, unsure what else to offer. "No, Mom. I'm sorry." Tiffany's eyes filled with tears. "I treated you horribly. I let you be humiliated at the engagement party. I prioritized Geraldine's approval over the mother who gave me everything. I was so blinded by the lifestyle Victor and his family represented that I forgot who I really am, who we are." Her words touched the wound in my heart, beginning a healing I hadn't thought possible. "Why did you come today, Tiffany?" She straightened her shoulders. "To apologize properly. To tell you I understand now what I threw away. Not just financial support but your love and wisdom. And to ask if there's any way we can start rebuilding what I destroyed." "It won't be easy," I cautioned. "Trust, once broken, takes time to restore." "I know. I don't expect forgiveness overnight. But I miss you, Mom. I miss who I was when I was your daughter, not some social climbing version of myself I didn't even recognize." We talked for hours, more honestly than we had in years. She told me about the gradual way Victor and Geraldine had isolated her, subtly criticizing me while elevating themselves. How her insecurities about fitting into their world had made her desperate for their approval. I started seeing myself through their eyes, she admitted. Suddenly your success seemed embarrassing rather than impressive because you'd worked for it instead of inheriting it. What changed your perspective? Charlotte partly. She never bought into the Reeves mystique and kept questioning why I was acting so differently. And after Victor left, I had a lot of time to think. I remembered who was there for every important moment of my life, who built a business while raising me alone, who never made me feel like I was a burden. Her words soothed places long bruised, but I maintained emotional boundaries. One conversation couldn't erase months of hurt. What about the ring? She asked eventually. I understand now why you kept it. It wasn't about the money. No, it wasn't. Grandma Beatrice's ring represents our family's resilience and connection, values that can't be bought. I thought about it in completely the wrong way, Tiffany acknowledged. All I saw was the price tag, not the legacy. As darkness fell outside, we moved to the kitchen where I prepared a simple dinner of soup and bread, reminiscent of simpler times before wealth had complicated our lives. I heard about your foundation, Tiffany said as we ate. Charlotte told me you're helping women like you were, struggling single mothers. It's given me purpose, I admitted. You should meet Jessica sometime. She reminds me of myself at that age. I'd like that. Tiffany hesitated. Maybe I could volunteer? If that wouldn't be too awkward. The offer surprised me. You want to work at the shelter? I need to reconnect with what really matters, and maybe give back some of the privilege I've taken for granted. It was a start, a small step toward the daughter I remembered. We could try that, I agreed cautiously. As Tiffany prepared to leave, she paused at the door. The ring. Is it still in the family? It's in my safe deposit box. It will stay there until the time is right. She nodded acceptance. I understand. I need to earn back your trust first. Not just my trust, Tiffany. You need to reconnect with the values it represents. After she left, I sat in my quiet house, processing the unexpected turn of events. Reconciliation wouldn't be instant or easy. There would be setbacks, old patterns to overcome. But for the first time in months, hope flickered alongside the pain. The following week, Tiffany joined me at the shelter. Watching her help Jessica's children with holiday crafts while I assisted another resident with job applications, I glimpsed the daughter I'd raised. Kind, capable, genuine. You're good with kids, I commented as we drove home. I always wanted to teach, she admitted. Before I got caught up in Victor's world and its expectations. It's never too late to pursue what truly calls you. The ring remained in the bank, a tangible reminder of our family's journey. Perhaps someday Tiffany would wear it, understanding its true value. Or perhaps it would go to Jessica's daughter, or another young woman who embodied the resilience and integrity it symbolized. What mattered wasn't the diamond's destination but the lessons it had taught us both. That true worth comes from character, not carrots. That self-respect must precede respect from others. And that sometimes losing what you thought you wanted leads to finding what you truly need. As Christmas approached, Tiffany and I established new traditions. Small dinners rather than extravagant parties. Volunteering together at the shelter's holiday event. Conversations about meaningful things rather than status symbols. Our relationship was forever changed. The innocent trust of before replaced by something more conscious and intentional. But in that intentionality lay a deeper connection. Eyes wide open to both our flaws and our capacity for growth. The ring waited patiently in its velvet box. A $500,000 reminder that the most valuable things in life can't be measured in dollars but in dignity, in purpose, and in love strong enough to survive betrayal and find its way home again. What would you do if faced with similar treatment from a family member? Would you have kept the family heirloom or given it despite the hurt? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe if this story resonated with you. Thank you for joining me on this journey of self-discovery and setting boundaries. Remember, sometimes the most loving thing you can do is stand up for your own worth.